Want to host your own talk show or submit a film? We're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13 with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
As the hour is 6:50 p.m., I'll call the Town of Exeter Select Board meeting to order. Before we introduce the board, we do have one committee interview that we'll be conducting downstairs in the wheelwright room, and we should be back around 7 o'clock.
Did I spin you in there?
No, it's like we were.
Okay, welcome back. Good evening, Exeter. Good evening to my colleagues on the board, respective town staff, those in attendance this evening, and those watching at home. And welcome to the January 30th, 2023 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. I'd like to start by introducing the board. To my right, Selectwoman Levy Roundtree Olaf. Good evening.
Good evening.
Our Vice Chair, Selectwoman Molly Cowan. Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
And to my left, our Clerk, Selectwoman Julie Gilman.
Good evening.
And Selectwoman Nancy Belanger. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Our Town Manager, Mr. Russ Dean. Good evening.
Good evening.
Our Recording Secretary, Joanna Bartel. Good evening. And my name is Nico Papakostandis. Good evening to all of you. We just conducted a board interview down in the Wheelwright Room. We'll jump right into our agenda. The first item is public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to step up and make comment to the Select Board. We do ask that if your comment is relative to an agenda item, that you wait for that item to come up. I'll pause for a moment. Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll jump. I'm sorry?
I didn't quite understand. I'd like to comment on the plastics ordinance when that comes up.
Happily, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We don't have any proclamations or recognitions this evening, so we'll jump into the approval of our minutes. I'd first ask if there are any revisions or amendments to the Exeter Select Board regular meeting minutes of January 17th, 2023. Seeing none, then, I would entertain a motion to approve the Town of Exeter regular meeting minutes, Town of Exeter Select Board regular meeting minutes of January 17th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed, and one abstention. Thank you. Next, we have appointments. We just interviewed Ryan Jean downstairs for the Open Sustainability Advisory Committee position. Mr. Dean, do we have the term date on that?
We do. It would be expiring April 30th, 2024.
24, okay. Then I would entertain a motion, if the board was so inclined, to appoint Ryan Jean to the regular Sustainability Advisory Committee position with a term date to expire April 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Ryan, congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. You're official.
So jumping into our discussion items, our first two action items this evening are sustainability related. The first of which is a presentation from the Helpsy's Textile Recycling Program, which started, I believe, this week last year.
Yesterday.
Am I correct?
Was the
Yesterday.
year anniversary.
At the time, DPW Director Jennifer Perry really steered the town into the right direction with this, and I personally know many people who have been utilizing this. We asked Helpsy's to come back on and talk to the board tonight to generate additional interest and just sort of talk about the program. And Selectwoman Belanger, I know you've been speaking with Jordan. Did you have any opening remarks?
Just that this is a follow-up to Gwen English, who brought it to my attention. She utilizes this option and was concerned that it wasn't getting out in the public enough or being utilized. So this is a follow-up to Gwen's concerns. And I just want to read something that our Department of Public Works posted on January 10th of this year. It says, in December, Helpsy collected 391 pounds of clothing and textiles from Exeter residents. That brings our total pounds of clothing and textiles collected for 2022 up to 6,861 pounds. So it's working, but we need to do some work, some public announcement, something. So
Refreshing people never hurt.
yes.
And in addition to providing,
Sorry,
no, that's okay.
there was a number I asked our town manager to get, because we do get we get money back from them.
That's what I was just going to say.
And to date, it's $137.22. So not only do they help keep these items out of our trash, they also pay us a stipend to do it, so
All right.
we can get more people to get it picked up, we can make
It's
more
a
money.
win- it's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
So this evening from Helpsy's, we have both Jordan and Tara on Zoom. And good evening. Can you both hear us? We
Hi.
can see you.
Hi, can you all hear us? Apologies, I have no idea where to look.
There you go. Hi.
Hi,
Good evening.
Jordan.
Ta-da, perfect. Hello, everyone. It's excellent to virtually be with y'all. I can go ahead and get started. Yeah, I think that Nancy did a great job of summarizing Helpsy, and that's so fun. I hadn't realized it had been fully a year to the week, so we're really excited to be in Exeter and doing home pickups for y'all. Like Nancy said, Exeter's been doing this for about a year now. The number one way that we like to do these kinds of home pickups or these kinds of collections are through those home pickups, which again do make your town money, and then they also save money by avoiding tipping fees and the likes of that. I think that's something Nancy alluded to as well, is that since November, we have started doing home pickups on the second Sunday of each month, and that's when we will be in Exeter doing home pickups for y'all. And she gave me a list of questions that I can go through now and hopefully answer any additional questions that come up for y'all as well. And so Nancy's number one question that she had from our conversation was, where do the clothes and other items, because we pick up all kinds of household textiles, bedding, stuffed animals, shoes, everything like that. Where do they go after they are picked up? So we have actually a warehouse in Woburn, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. So from Exeter, those clothes go directly to our warehouse in Woburn. 95% of everything that Helpsy collects is salvageable in some kind of fashion. That other 5% is just because it's oil stained or somehow contaminated in some way, shape, or form. So we will take textiles in any condition you give them to us in, as long as they are dry and odorless. 75% of that 95% are reusable, 20% is recyclable. So we first sort the items that are collected by us and then divide them into grades. The higher grades are resold either through our online marketplace or to other partners that we have who are doing secondhand work. And then the stuff in the lower grades get downcycled into industrial use, things like rags, stuffing, insulation, and the like. The next question that Nancy had is, what are the best practices for scheduling pickups at people's homes? So it's really super easy to schedule a home pickup. It literally takes less than a minute just at our website, and I'm certain that all of y'all are familiar with that. I've worked with all the amazing folks at the Public Works Department, and they've done a great job updating the website. So all that information should be on the Exeter Town website. You just click on the link, give us your address, pick your date. We will be there as long as there are bags there at 7 a.m. on the day of pickup. We recently implemented a new rule where we are requesting that folks have a minimum of 3 bags in order to do pickups, just so that we can keep in our mission as being a really environmentally minded mission business and reduce emissions, make our routes more efficient, that kind of thing. So that's really the best practice, is to just schedule a sign up on the website and make sure that you've got at least 3 bags. We've heard of folks before, like getting whole apartment complexes together and doing a big apartment complex pickup, or if you don't have 3 bags yourself, maybe getting together with a neighbor and scheduling just one at one of y'all's houses is definitely an option. But that's what we really like about the home pickups, is that they're so convenient and really easy for folks to use. The next question that Nancy had is about tax receipts. So are tax receipts provided for a tax deduction? We do not provide tax receipts, as Helpsy is a certified for-profit B corporation. We're not a 501c3. We work with a lot of 501c3s to provide them fundraising for their organizations, but we ourselves are not one, so we can't do tax receipts for deductions. And then the bulk of Nancy and I's conversation was about community outreach, which is kind of what y'all are doing right now, which is really great because, like I said, it's a super easy program to utilize. And I think that a lot of the residents who have used it have been really successful and hopefully had a really great experience with it. And so sort of one way that we've found that is really effective for community outreach is doing community events. Nancy mentioned y'all have a Revolutionary Day coming up in the spring-ish time. So anything like a household hazardous waste day, a community fair, something like that is a really great opportunity to have like a pop-up clothing drive. So folks can both bring their textiles to be recycled at that event itself, but we can also spread the word, make it really visible, because theoretically, no one's necessarily seeing home pickups happen at 7 a.m. on a Saturday or Sunday for y'all. But something like that is really a good way to get textile recycling visible in the community, to normalize it as a waste habit, all that kind of stuff. So that's a really great option. Another thing that Nancy and I discussed was connecting with the Sustainability Committee, which y'all just swore a new member into, which is very exciting to see that growing. On social media posts, public outreach, any kind of newsletters that they have, getting it in town announcements, regular reminders, stuff like that, especially because clothing recycling is so seasonal. Like, hopefully folks aren't throwing away a whole bag of clothes a week. So just doing seasonal reminders to make sure that that's a regular part of folks' seasonal cleanouts and that kind of thing. Another one is we've had towns in the past air ads, kind of their promotional materials that we have, just explaining how to schedule a home pickup, to make sure to recycle your textiles on public broadcast television, much like what we're on right now. And they've been really successful with that. And then finally, another really great way to do community outreach for textile recycling in general, and we can loop it into home pickups, but it can also be its own separate thing, is by working with the schools in Exeter to do those pop-up clothing drives, or perhaps place clothing bins. Those are always options as well, to give folks options besides those home pickups for textile recycling. I don't know if Tara, you have anything to add at this point, or?
Actually, Jordan, I think you've covered just about everything. I appreciate that. I don't know how much Exeter has done clothing drives before, but it is really a good way to involve the community. And anytime you involve the schools, you start getting the concept to the students, who then spread it to the parents. So then the home pickups start increasing, and it's also income fundraising for your schools, because not only does your municipality get the $40 per ton, that percentage, but the schools also get a second amount. So they are getting a certain amount per pound. So it's really a good fundraising for the schools, as well as ancillary income for your municipality. I think that's about all I have to add.
Thank you. They said everything. I think this is a wonderful program. I would love to see sustainability or committee, or working with I believe we have 2 students on that committee. Is it?
That's the energy committee.
Okay, so even they might be interested in teaming up with sustainability, doing a school project. When I spoke with you, Jordan, one of the ideas that you and I had brainstormed together with is a possible, say, Earth Day event where a truck would come in, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if a truck would come in and it would be promoted that way. Is that something that could happen in the future?
Absolutely. I might have misspoken. We might need to do a cart as opposed to a truck, but absolutely we can do that either at City Hall for Earth Day, or like even an Earth Week. We've had towns do that before, where they just keep a cart in the lobby of City Hall for the week, and let folks know that they can come drop off any clothes that they would like to have recycled. That's kind of a fun, get folks in and out of municipal buildings, and that's a great option as well, or to combine it with a spring household hazardous waste day, or if the high school is doing an Earth Day event, anything like that. Clothing drives are really great because they can be standalone events in and of themselves, where the whole point is to come and drop off your clothes, or they can be an extra part of an already existing event like that. But Earth Day is absolutely a big one for us and totally doable.
So, Jordan, just to confirm, you said the pickup in Exeter is the second Sunday of each month?
It is, yes.
Correct. Okay. All right. So, Mr. Dean, we have 2 elementary schools, here in Exeter that maybe we could start with, and then also reach out to Dr. Ryan and extend it out into the SAU, but certainly between Exeter, Main Street School and Lincoln Street School, maybe reaching out to gauge interest there. And I'm also thinking, and Jordan, pipe in, if you have any other communities that utilize this, if we had, for instance, at a bin at the rec center, at the rec park, or maybe at 10 Hampton Road when that gets developed. I'm just trying to think of some areas in town that we could put a bin where it wouldn't be too inconvenient or in the way, but also where there's a lot of traffic.
And there was some discussion about the transfer station as a place to put one, and I know there's room for one there. So I don't know if there's desire on the board to do that or look into it further.
Transfer station, and then, also I'm thinking, between summer camp and fall and spring sports, it would remind families that if they have old equipment or uniform or clothing or anything like that, maybe having a smaller bin there would be convenient,
Okay.
providing there was room. What do some of the other communities you work with, Jordan, do to utilize common spaces to drop off textiles?
Yeah, I would say I personally have spent some time at the Newton, Massachusetts transfer station, and they've got just a mess of bins there. They're actually ones that we service like multiple times a week because they're really popular. I think it also helps, like, if you already have existing recycling programs there, it's kind of about catching folks where they're already in the mindset of like, I'm going to the transfer station to drop some stuff off that I want to get rid of anyways. So I'm going to bring the clothes with me as well to make sure that those don't end up in household trash. So the Newton, Massachusetts is one that I've seen their transfer station in person. It's another great one as well because then it's closed at night, so we don't have to worry about like any issues like that. Security is pretty taken care of, but then also it's usually got pretty good hours, so our drivers can access it to service the bins. As well is a really successful one. And I love the rec center idea too, Tara. I don't know if you can think of any communities that have stuff like that. But I think that's a great idea for a place that's already a focal point of the community.
I think making the program successful by offering different options for everybody. You've got home pickups, if you involve the schools, if you have DPW, bin at the transfer station, and then a public bin somewhere where people can get to it more easily. I think just offering those options will definitely increase the collection weights for your municipality. I feel like I'm still on camera, but
Anyone?
I don't think they're hearing us.
Okay.
Clearly.
oh yeah, we couldn't hear
Okay,
anything.
sorry, we couldn't hear you. No.
Okay.
The question was, how do we get the bins?
Yeah, how do we get the bins? It would just be, let us know kind of where you're thinking. We would absolutely work with you to make a site plan to select the best spot for it, thinking about when and where our drivers can services, that kind of thing. Tara, you can speak more to like what the timeline would be for that.
Yeah, it really depends on you guys. Probably within a couple of weeks, we could have bins down. We've already got the agreement with your town, so that's the easiest part. As far as the weight that's collected goes to your municipal, if it's on municipal property, pretty much, it just goes to your municipal income, right? It goes to the weight that counts for your town. But as far as how many bins you might want, we could just look at it. Jordan can do site plans for you based on those areas we talked about. And maybe your DPW only allows for one bin. Maybe they don't have the space. If it's a really busy location, we don't like to just place one bin. I think it's better just to keep people having the option to donate without it filling up too quickly. We like to place 2 bins if it's available. If you don't have the space, we'll absolutely just put 1 bin. But I think we could probably do this within a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think next steps would just be solidly what are the locations,
Right.
and we can take it from there. Yeah.
While we investigate maybe parks and recs, some other areas, and contact the schools, is the board interested in moving forward at the transfer station?
I am.
If there's a place to keep it dry.
Or at least having them reach out to DPW I think that's a great first step.
Yeah, I think we've had some preliminary conversations, and it seems like it's a doable thing.
Okay. All right.
That would be great.
Since there's a consensus of the board, Mr. Dean, if we could reach out to Helpsy and DPW and then maybe report back to the board once it
Site is finalized. Yeah.
on its way to becoming a reality.
So Jordan and Tara, you'd both be on that email thread, or just one of you for talking
You can
with
just continue to
DPW?
reach out to Jordan.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
And I'll make sure you have that. You do, but, okay.
Very good.
But yes, I would be happy to help set that up for y'all and really excited about keeping this going in Exeter.
Yeah,
Terrific.
thank you, Jordan.
Are there any other questions from the board?
I think I have one.
please.
You mentioned at the beginning that when you sort the materials out and grade them by, what condition they're in and where they can be used. And I'm just torn, I guess, because, no pun intended, right? Because I typically donate the higher grade materials to a couple of different nonprofits. And so, if I put them in my bag, I don't know that they're going to those particular nonprofits that I want to benefit. So I don't know what to say. After that, it's just kind of a statement, I guess.
Do you want to go ahead? Sarah and I are probably about to say about the same thing, which is that you are absolutely still welcome to give those items to the nonprofit of your choice. Like, I personally have a hierarchy of getting rid of my clothes to just make sure that they don't end up in the trash. That's what we like to say, is that our only true competition is the trash. So just whatever we can do to make sure that the clothes end up having a good second life to them is absolutely an option. So we totally encourage folks to make sure that if you have an organization you're plugged in with, absolutely keep giving things to them. But there are going to be some items that they might not want. Like you said, your stuff that's torn, ripped, stained, that kind of thing is absolutely stuff that we can then know how to process.
And a lot of times what we do with the clothing that we sort is we give to the nonprofits items that they need. So we have some locations, they may not need a fancy sweater, but they may need jackets and pants and shoes. So we use a lot of times the money that we get from selling to some of your higher end things, we get that get it to the nonprofits for the things that they need. We just did a Project Warmth project, I guess. Do you know how many coats we ended up with, Jordan?
I wouldn't quote me on it, but it's somewhere around the 30,000 mark. Okay.
So we try to do as much as we can for our nonprofits, but we had a quote from a pastor, and pardon me, it won't be verbatim, but basically saying that people have all the best intentions in wanting to donate to any type of emergency fund or nonprofit, and it really just costs them a lot of money to sort the clothing and to try to make sense of it all. So it helps them to have a bigger organization like ourselves that can sort it and get them the items that they actually need.
Or funds and place
funds, correct.
Of the items, yeah.
Terrific.
I hope that helps a little bit.
It helps a lot. I'd like to open it up to the public if any of the public has any questions for either Jordan or Tara. And I'd like to note as well that we have the Town of Exeter Sustainability Coordinator in attendance, as well as members of the Sustainability Committee. And I think maybe inviting Jordan and Tara to a future meeting via Zoom to brainstorm on some different things other than what we talked about, or maybe helping DPW and the schools might be a good resource. And Chris and I can get their information if you don't have it already. Any comment or questions from the public for Jordan and Tara? All right. Well, thank you both very much for spending some time with us this evening. Thank you, Nancy, for coordinating this, and Gwen, thank you for talking to Nancy.
Yes, the instigator is in the room. So thank you so much, Jordan. You've spent a lot of time with me, and I very much appreciate it.
Yes, it's been excellent to chat with everyone, and I look forward to being in touch soon.
Great.
Terrific. Thank you both.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you, Tara.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that was great. Thank you, Nancy.
And Gwen.
And Gwen.
It's exciting.
And I think the more that we can advertise it, and I look over to you, obviously, to
Look, we've had 1 year. It started out
Accelerate.
okay. Let's see if we can get it to grow.
That's right.
Yeah.
My pickup is scheduled on February 12th, if anybody would like to join me.
I will. What a great
And, that's a
idea.
great idea. She talked about apartment buildings, but just neighborhoods or,
Right.
streets or getting
Yeah.
together. I mean, that's,
Right.
I did that with the
Amazing.
household hazardous waste.
Yeah.
I was the fluorescent light bulb person.
That's also smart.
yeah. All
I
right.
need a paint person to Take all my paint. Oh, gosh.
That's for another evening. Okay, with that, moving forward, we have Kristen Murphy, our Sustainability Coordinator, as well as members of the Sustainability Committee back. You recall, we had 3 public hearings on a proposed single-use plastic ordinance. The board deliberated and asked the committee to come back with a policy, language of a policy, and we've read our packet. And Kristen, we'll start with you, and I think there are members of the committee that want to speak, as well as the public, of course.
I'm going to pull the policy up just so you can see it.
Okay.
Good evening, Kristen Murphy, Conservation and Sustainability Planner for the town of Exeter. The last time that I was here with the Sustainability Committee before you, it was requested that the committee consider a single-use plastics policy. So I did that. I took the ordinance and the majority of the language that we had and crafted it following the format of the select board policies that are online and presented that to the Sustainability Committee. The committee felt like there were some additional points they wanted to raise to you. So what I'll present to you tonight is the document that I presented then.
Thank you.
Okay, so as I said, the majority of the language is identical. And with your permission, I can just step through maybe format changes and the changes in specific language that I made.
Thank you.
Okay, so the purpose has remained the same. The select board policy had a different category, departments and individuals affected. And so I added all town departments and any town facility, town property, excluding town streets unless a special permit is issued, town managed or sponsored events, or activity authorized through special permits issued under the authority of the Town of Exeter Select Board. So I added the streets item to address the concern that was raised, I think on the 21st or perhaps at a follow-up meeting by legal counsel. The distribution definition is the same, so is human service organization. Maybe this isn't working. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Okay, so the other change that I made currently, or the former version of the town ordinance for reusable bag, it did include in its definition the plastic woven bags. Those are the cheap bags that you find at the grocery store. They're not the thin plastic, but the plastic woven. And my thinking here was to revise it and include only bags made of cloth, because I feel like if we're doing a policy that's a recommendation, we should be recommending the better of the two options. And so promoting, although that helps to use some plastic material up, it's really fostering additional plastic use in people's homes. So I refined the definition as you see it there, a sewn bag with stitched handles that's specifically designed and manufactured for at least 175 uses. 2 can carry 25 pounds over a distance of 300 feet, and 3 is made of cloth or machine washable fabric other than polyethylene or polyvinyl chloride. That definition is from Beyond Plastics. That's their recommended definition. The other thing that this actually isn't a change, but I have had a couple people reach out to me on this item. Single-use plastic bag. A lot of people have, Public Works asked about the pet waste stations. I think someone had asked Russ that same question. The definition actually says in there, trash bags used for disposing of waste are excluded. So that wouldn't apply to pet waste stations. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then policy, this is basically the same language. It just has the word policy in front of it. And again, it includes the language excluding town streets unless special permit is issued. So this policy would discourage the use of single-use plastic disposable items at any town facility, town property, town managed or sponsored event or activity authorized through special permits issued under the authority of the Select Board unless otherwise allowed under product exceptions, and I list those later. So those single-use plastic disposables are single-use plastic bags, single-use plastic food service products, and single-use polystyrene containers, often referred to as styrofoam. Next slide, please. Stacy, next slide, please. Oh, you did. Oh, you're so fast. I didn't even see it. Okay, the other change that I had, there was some discussion about length of time, and so I included in this version, all town departments and vendors may distribute their remaining inventory for 12 months. I believe the original was 9 months. And then the last one where there's the most substantive change, this did not exist in the former. It's implementation and support. So 7.1 states clarification on this policy, alternative product sourcing questions or resources for event-based composting can be directed to the Town of Exeter Conservation and Sustainability Planner. 7.2 is the Town of Exeter may provide recycling bins upon request to those adhering to this policy. This service is contingent on oversight to ensure proper recycling. So I did check with Public Works. Having compost bins at events was a bit more than our transfer station bin could accommodate, but there may be some times when our bin is low enough. So for certain events, it may be possible. So I kind of left some flexibility in there. And then they were supportive of having recycle bins for town events, provided someone was there. So I just honored that by including it in the language. So that's the language as I presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm happy to take questions or...
Any questions from the board on the policy?
Well, I'm still concerned, I'm still about the monitoring part. I think we talked about this several times, and we seems to be a disconnect on who can actually do the monitoring.
Monitoring of the
policy,
bins or?
The bins,
Okay.
anything, right? So unless we have a town employee at these events, how are we going to monitor them?
So I guess I would say it would function similar to littering, right? So we don't have people monitoring the streets for littering, but if littering is discovered or someone's seen littering, it's reported. In terms of the bins themselves, I would think it would be a commitment upon the permittee. If they want to have a recycle bin, they would need to commit to have someone monitor the
I'm
bins.
sorry, so if somebody litters, a citizen will call the police department and tell them somebody litters? I'm just trying to clarify. Honestly, we all want to get this done, but we have to cross the T's and dot the I's. This is really important.
I'm open to recommendations, I guess.
So we've talked about this monitoring, the oversight. I mean, are we expecting James Murray to be at these events?
So we did hear at a former meeting, the chief did say that James Murray could inform the permittees when he goes and inspects them. So there is that facet.
Yeah.
But I'm not committing to attend these.
I know, and so I'm going to go back to something, if I could, Mr. Chair. When we were talking about the mask mandate and who could, were citizens going to report and take photos, right? Have we thought out how this reporting and oversight is going to? No. Okay.
So I guess, if I could, go ahead.
I'm just going to chime in. I have, I guess, a lot of faith in the community members that if we propose something that's supposed to prolong our planet, our lives, the environment, that at baseline we have to make an assumption that the majority of people are going to do the right thing. We also live in a town that is very vocal, and people have a tendency of being very vocal when things aren't going well and are quick to comment on, hey, there's trash piling up in this particular area, we don't have enough bins, there's a, traffic circle is really dangerous. So I'm less concerned about how do we police it or how do we manage it versus just making sure that all of the pieces of the puzzle we want in place for supporting it, if that makes sense. So if there are vendors who aren't sure how to get all of these things done, that we just have the resources available to them to say, here's a place where you can purchase items that would fall in line with what we're looking for. I think that is more what I think we should work on. I'm less concerned about, somebody walking around with a clipboard handing out notices, but my own opinion about it.
And I do have on the town's website, and, certainly through this process, if adopted, we can enhance it. We could have my contact info in the policy, but the town's website has links to thousands of sources as it is today.
Yeah.
If I can I just jump in?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I agree with Selectwoman Round-Triola. I think knowing our town's going to want to do the right thing, and we have all, from day one, we're behind doing something here. We just, as Selectwoman Belanger said, we've got to dot the i's and cross the t's, because once it's on paper, it's on paper. And I have the same concerns, Selectwoman Round-Triola, that you have about folks taking matters into their own hands. We saw that with the mask ordinance. But I think back to what Selectwoman Belanger was bringing up, when you get to a point where no one's expecting, a town employee to go to events on weekends. I mean, that's just not practical. But when we got into and I don't like using the word enforcer, you had a better word for it.
Oversight.
Oversight, thank you. There was mention of the sustainability coordinator and the town manager to issue written warnings, second time, third time offense. My understanding, and Mr. Dean, I'd have you correct me, but my understanding under the RSA is if you're issuing written citations like that, I'm not sure that town staff or the town manager are authorized to do that under the RSA. It would be code enforcement, it would be a health officer. So we would need to get clarification whether or not staff could do that. And then the second one was, again, getting clarification on the third warning, the fourth warning, when the town manager or the sustainability coordinator were going to tell a permittee that they couldn't permit anymore. Ultimately, the permitting comes before the select board. So these are just things we're trying to get clarification on. We're not saying no, we're just saying
these
are things we need to get documented.
Understood. And I guess my confusion is coming from that language isn't in the policy, so.
It's not, and that's why we were starting with a policy, but I've also read my packet, and I know that some folks are going to come up to talk about reconsideration of an ordinance, so I'm bringing that up now, because that's a big part of why I think we proposed starting with a policy to get moving in the right direction while we worked this and other things out. Mr. Dean?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we know we're going to get the calls, and I think you made a good point, Mr. Chair, about the enforcement and the viability and you're absolutely right, enforcement is generally spelled out in the RSAs for specific officers that enforce. The town manager's office could probably pull a permit. That wouldn't be, out of the realm of possibility, or acting through the select board. But I share your concerns.
Any other comments on the policy before we move forward?
Well, forgive me for not remembering, but do we have a parks use policy or requirement that is the take only pictures, leave only footprints kind of thing, that if there's an event, whoever's throwing the event has to take out their trash? I just don't remember. So what I'm thinking is that if that's the case, if we already have that part in, that would be part of the, or it could be part of the enforcement aspect by the goods going to the transfer station. And if they get rejected there, but that's only a couple of days a week, right? Just for a kind of, look-see at what's going in the trash versus the recycling. Let me search.
Anyway.
I'm not sure I understood.
Well, no, if we have a policy right now that an event happens and whoever sponsors it is responsible for taking their trash out. If the trash is going to the transfer station, then that's a point of review of the trash to see if there's trash in the recycle bin as opposed to not.
That's what I thought. So who would do that?
I don't know, whoever's at the transfer station.
So
And that would be a town employee.
Jay Perkins did say the reason they need someone to commit to monitor that bin is if town staff went to pull the bins at the end of the event and it was contaminated, the whole bin would have to go into the trash.
Right.
So they'd have to look at it as they pick it up, but they're not able to sort it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that happened at the Chili Fest. There were some
people there. Yeah.
People there that actually...
They were volunteers.
Yeah, they were volunteers that did that.
And that's what we talked about early on. We talked about perhaps partnering with organizations that are seeking community service hours, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, et cetera, and maybe have a partnership where we could use them to monitor these bins. We could, offer up volunteer hours through that process.
But regardless of whether it's a policy and an ordinance, the idea is to encourage people not using single-use plastics. So I don't know that we want to investigate time and staff to conduct internal special investigations into trash collected 2 or 3 days. That's not the point of this. This is to eliminate the use of plastics, correct?
Yes, I misunderstood. I thought that was
maybe I
about
did too, but
recycle bins at events.
Right. But I'm getting back to you. Maybe I misunderstood you.
No, I was going a little far afield, or a little too weedy, I guess. But, it's what we're talking about is not using town staff to police these events. So what I'm talking about would fit under that umbrella, so no.
Yeah, so Public Works provides trash facilities, and so it would just be, in addition to picking up the trash, they'd be picking up a recycle bin.
But not conducting, an
sorting it.
investigation. Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Kristen on the policy? Well, thank you.
Okay.
I mean, I think this was the direction the board was, looking for. That's why I'm asking if there's any, regarding this, if there's any questions, comments, suggestions, revisions, additions, subtractions. And then if not, we can move on to, I know the Sustainability Advisory Committee is here to talk more about the ordinance. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. There's a move that under somewhere. I remember. Here comes out. Hey, yep. Oh, you got it on here? Yeah. Okay. I think it's not. Oh, it's not.
It was, but even when it
It only works when we're not in meetings.
it wouldn't advance.
I'll try to. I'll look into that.
No worries. Good evening. Good to see you all again. My name, for those who don't know, is Christopher Zigmont from Crestview Drive. I am the Vice Chair of the Sustainability Advisory Committee. We're here again tonight to present a refined draft of a proposed ordinance to limit distribution of single-use plastics on town property. Our takeaway from our December meeting, we did have a sustainability advisory meeting in early January after that, and the committee voted unanimously to pursue an ordinance again, primarily because of the tool of enforcement. We feel that we do understand there's interest in a policy, but like we just discovered, there's challenges once you get to the point of somebody not following the policy. That will also still be something we'll have to discuss tonight as well regarding an ordinance, but I would submit that that's something that's going to we're going to have to cross that bridge. So. For the neighbors that are just gaining awareness of this or have not been keeping up with some of the earlier proceedings, we just put together a very simple overview of what this ordinance would do and wouldn't do. The proposed ordinance would prohibit the distribution of single-use plastics, single-use plastic food service containers, bags, single-use polystyrene containers on town property, including town buildings and parks, by anyone, including town staff, organizations, or permittees. It would give all affected parties through December 31st, 2023 to use existing inventory and to identify acceptable alternatives. It would provide guidance on selecting suitable alternatives. It would provide exceptions for human services and emergency services. It would provide Parks and Rec extended time to find suitable alternatives for the pool concession. It would deliver enforcement in the form of assistance for sourcing acceptable products, a written warning for a second violation, and a potential refusal of permitting for a third violation in the case of a vendor. It would not prohibit packaged materials for food safety, such as plastic wrap on meats or perishable products added at a local business site or processing facility. So think of the farmer's market as an example. It would not prohibit the use of single-use compostable products. It would not prohibit reusable plastic bags. It would not prohibit products where alternatives do not exist until such times as alternatives are identified. And it would not prohibit individuals, staff, or citizens from using or consuming prohibited containers brought on town property for personal consumption. So if you had a picnic at Swayze Parkway, you can bring what you like and no worries about that. In our first meeting before the board, we opened up by highlighting the environmental impact of single-use plastics facing our town and the greater environment before reading the first draft of this ordinance, and you can see some of those highlights here, you might remember. On our second reading, we introduced you to Nils Bolin, and this is the fellow with the patent on the three-point seatbelt. And we reviewed how long it took to implement seatbelts, even though we had the data back then and we all knew better, it still took 50 years. And we used the seatbelt to illuminate the need for government to lead society from time to time in the implementation of regulations for the common good in such areas as public health, environment, and public safety, and to save us from ourselves occasionally, as change is hard and changing habits sometimes takes decades. In our third reading before this body, we admittedly allowed ourselves to be taken off course to try to solve for an equation we likely had no business trying to address, and we led this entire parade right down an unfortunate rabbit hole and off the topic of limiting the use of single-use plastics on town property. I will say that the Daniel R. Healy Memorial Pool is a wonderful resource we all enjoy, and we fully support Parks and Rec and their hard work as stewards of important outdoor spaces and natural resources. We are sympathetic to budgets and how close to the bone many of these departments run. And while our proposal may have looked like a threat to the pool concession, the reality is quite different. Long before this proposal saw the light of day, our parks team had the vision to install fountains and bottle filling stations at 3 locations, including the pool, presenting 2 challenges. How much would that erode the water sales budget? And who would pay for the water that got drunk? Or drunk. Who would pay for the water? There you go. Our team spirit and desire to help solve the problem brought us a lot of spreadsheeting and proposals from our team to help, but to no avail. But not to worry, a solution may lie within. On that note, one of this week's letters of support addressed the role of Parks and Rec and the town officials head on. Our neighbor Mary writes, if education is important and Parks and Rec's department is in a prime position to demonstrate this by doing the right thing, they ought not to be selling anything with single-use packaging. The $2,400 profit, plus or minus, is nothing compared with the potential to educate and support park patrons who could or are doing the right things. Please set an example and make it easier for town staff, citizens, and patrons to do the right thing. I think it's not okay for our town to make selling disposable bottles a profit-making enterprise. Thanks, Mary T. from Exeter. With all of that, we're here before you tonight for a fourth and hopefully last time with what we believe to be a robust ordinance draft to limit the distribution of single-use plastics on town property. We've been through several iterations incorporating the feedback from these sessions and outside, And we're very pleased with the broad public support we've received with so far with many letters of support, including 2 more incredibly thoughtful letters tonight. Tonight we'll illuminate what might be the most important and convincing argument for some, the money. And although there are headlines almost every single day spelling out the environmental peril we've created, there seems sometimes to offer little motivation to change habits for some. So we'll look at the costs of doing something and the cost of doing nothing. What are the costs of what we're doing right now, and how this ordinance, this one little thing we can do together, will make it better. We will breeze through 4 quick points we think you should know. As we said, this ordinance proposal to limit distribution of single-use plastics on town property is far-reaching, but the sticky wicket really seems to be letting go of bottled water. It's a tough habit to break, and even if it's for the common good. So we'll take a little closer look at it. And the one other point when we talk about money we want to keep in mind on each slide is that we're talking about all of your money, taxpayer money, okay? And if you've already got your head around these topics, I'll try my best to be very, very brief. Number 1, drinking town water. As a town, we've invested heavily in our drinking water supply and continue to do so. We spent more than $7 million on improvements in the last 10 years, and more is coming. And it's good water. It's from right here. It's all around. There's no trucking, no shipping, or plastics required. And it's cheap. The worst price you're going to pay in Exeter is about $14 for 1,000 gallons of water. That's less than a penny and a half per gallon. 1,000 gallons is about 7,400 individual bottles of water. Why not drink some? Why would we not drink our own good water instead of trucking in water from all over the country in single-use poisonous containers? It's a good question. So presently here at town offices, in the rec, and elsewhere in the municipal operations, this is our choice. It's easy. It feels affordable, but when the town chooses the convenience of a single-use plastic bottle of water, here's what we get with your money. 0.001% of the tax dollars invested are going to buy the actual water inside the bottle. The rest of your money flows out of town to packaging companies, to shipping companies driving diesel trucks to bring this water to you from around the country. It goes to Big Oil, that's who makes the plastics, and retailers such as Walmart and Target, and on and on. There are, of course, environmental costs as well. As you can see, it takes about 3 bottles of water to make 1 bottle of water. And it takes about 4 ounces, about a teacup's worth of refined oil to bring you each bottle. Why would we do that with taxpayer money? Your money, my money? I don't know. The cost of recycling are roughly $1.2 million we spend a year as a town to remove solid waste. Of that 1.2 million, a little less than that, a little less than half is recycling, according to Public Works. We know that most items that go into recycling bins are suffering from having right now no market value. The majority of all recyclables end up in landfills or incinerated. If you wonder what does get recycled, about 35% of produced aluminum, about 30% of produced steel. Interestingly, both those metals are in very high demand, but it's our poor recycling habits that put most of them in a landfill. 31% of glass, but less than 5% of produced plastic ever makes it to a recycling area. So we know we can't recycle our way out of this problem, and we don't have to have arguments about recycling bins because it won't really matter. We can't recycle our way out of it. And handing over our hard-earned money to make it go away doesn't look like a very good use of the money. Reduction is the key. Use less. So $500,000. What percentage then of what gets collected is single-use plastics? Well, I checked with Public Works and they don't get a breakdown from Waste Management, who we work with to take our stuff away. So I went for a walk and here's what I found. Now this is entirely anecdotal. These are images I collected from my street before the truck came. I didn't open roller bins, I just shot the open totes, and it certainly varies from house to house. This is one street, completely random sample. I'd argue most streets will look pretty similar. My wild-ass guess puts this at about 40-ish% of single-use plastics. But for today's discussion, so we don't have an argument about it, let's just say a dumb number like 1% or 5% is single-use plastic. So let's say we put a little less in. What if a dumb number like 1 or 5% reduction was achieved? What would that savings look like? Remember, these are taxpayer dollars. What if we got there through limiting single-use plastics? 1% of $500,000 is $5,000. 5% is $25,000. So let's go back to that sticky wicket, that hot button issue from the third reading, and the rec department's pool concession budget and the shortfall they would face if they couldn't sell enough plastic bottles. Well, here's where I tip my hat to Greg Bisson and Parks and Rec for having the vision to put drinking fountains and bottle filling stations in 3 parks for the coming year. Whether Greg knew this or not, it was a masterstroke. Imagine having fountains in parks. Well, of course you can. That's how they were when we grew up. The trouble is, a lot of folks are worked up about the revenue loss in water sales and who's going to pay for the water people drink. Well, these are good problems, and we're here to help. Ironically, that shortfall in the pool budget concession is about $2,500. So even if we reduce what goes in the bin by just 0.5%, we can support the concession with no additional changes. If we do 1%, Parks and Rec could buy lots of reusable bottles to sell and hand out to those in need as well. You reduce that tonnage by 5%, and now we're paying off water bills in the park and elsewhere and installing more fountains. It's your money, people. How do you want it spent? You want to hauling pretend recycling and trash or improving our community and looking after your neighbors? And the coolest part is, it doesn't cost us anything more than investing in our own habits. Throw less away, stop buying plastics, demand the town does the same, get reusable stuff. It really works. Number 4, the benefits of single-use plastics. Well, there aren't any. Not unless you're invested in petroleum, then you win. These are the top 10, if you have some of these shares in these top 10 oil producers, then you're winning. But here in Exeter, we lose. We live in an estuarine town. Our kids drink this water. The plastics we use have a direct impact on us. In the end, our elected officials must act in the best interest of their constituents. Here, the science and evidence is overwhelming. The risk of action is simply inconvenience. The reward is to step in the right direction, albeit a small step. To do nothing in the face of this genuine crisis would be inhumane and irresponsible. We urge the Select Board to damn the convenience and act to protect our town and our families. I have, as promised, included the full text of the draft ordinance. That the first 3 pages had no changes from the December presentation, but we'll go ahead to that one. And really the only proposed modification is altering the date to December 31st, giving everybody that's either a town department or any permittee through the end of this year, through constant communication, to make those changes. One more slide that came out of the last Select Board meeting on this topic was to look at ways to communicate to permittees or people seeking permits, ways to understand the depth of the situation, what the policy would be or the ordinance would be, and provide some assistance in sourcing new products. So this is a draft flyer and could be posted on the web as well for this process. In closing, there's no upside for continuing the SUP distribution in our town properties, only a long list of downside. The pushback was financial and convenience and enforcement. We've demonstrated many paths to answer those. We hope you'll agree and will act to support the common good, and we thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Before I open it up to the public, does the board have any specific questions for Chris about his presentation only? And then we can deliberate. But while he's there, he threw a lot of numbers up there. I don't know if anybody had any questions or comments. No?
Oh, it's good.
Nothing here? Selectwoman Belanger, you good?
For now, yes.
All right,
Thank you.
Chris, we'll have you yield. We may have you back up, and I'll open it up to the public. Please. If you could just state your name and address for the record.
Mary Teagle, 9 Union Street, and I'm a newcomer, so pardon me.
Welcome.
It's nice to meet you. We corresponded over the weekend.
Thank you. I forgot my show and tell.
You promised.
After your discussion, by the way, I did watch your TV show in December.
Meetings.
Learned a lot and convinced that you are committed to doing something sustainable. And to Kristen, I've exchanged a little bit, and Chris and I have chatted about a number of things. I admire the work you've done, and tonight you've convinced me. as a citizen, I was going to say hold off. But Chris covered a lot of the topics that I had questions about, and since the last week, I've done something. So, but it's two things about the ordinance as it is. What are you going to do with the biodegradable stuff? I don't see anything here. And by the way, this is maybe 30 cents at max. If it were plastic, it might be a nickel. So, in the big picture, I guess it adds up. And I want to reiterate about the pool not selling water bottles. I just think it's the opposite of taking Coles to Newcastle. I just think it's inappropriate. And then one more thing about the ordinance. My profession is planning and architecture, and I've been to a couple sustainable rodeos in other places, University of Oregon, University of Vermont, City of Eugene, and I'm not coming here as an expert, but I want to share my experience. Eugene and the Saturday market there, independent entity, University of Vermont, University of Oregon, went to zero waste. That was their overall arching thing. That means zero waste is you have about 10% that goes to the landfill. And, this is Exeter, but we have an obligation to where our landfill goes. I don't know where it goes in Exeter, in Vermont, and upper New Hampshire, it's polluting a lake on the Canadian border. You all know this. So just nuts and bolts. The vendors at the Saturday market in Eugene had a little medium-sized for compostables, big splashy signs. Every time they sold something, please put it in that bin. And they had their trash bins, big ones, 30, 40, 50 feet away from every booth. So just an idea. You may have thought of that. And then I just want to go back to my main thing. I really would like to see the ordinance framed in something lofty, saving. I understand the proceedings. You're going to vote on as it is, as it's been read 3 times and amended. So I know you can't change it, but I would really like to see it come under an umbrella of Exeter being committed to reducing waste, to doing our little town share of saving the planet. It sounds like a cliche, but it's getting truer every day. And to aspire to zero waste. And it's huge. That's what the 3 other governmental agencies I mentioned, and I was party to 2 of those. Really, this is nuts. There's the container, there's the recycling, there's the composting, and Mr. Fox is too expensive. But to go to zero waste, it's like a 2-point seatbelt on a few cars. I want you to go for the 3-point seatbelt on all cars. Thanks for the metaphor. And then, because it's huge, I would suggest getting some serious analysis, marketing, work with the sustainability, and you do more than I even know, so I hand you that. And to phase it, consider doing on your chili feed or the Independence Day, and I'm not sure I have the term right. This is a zero waste event. And, go for it. And I think there are hundreds of people in this town who would volunteer with the proper training and organization for one day, 3-hour shifts. So I like living here. I'm glad I came. And it's really cool to meet the people who take charge of what we all want you to do. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members?
I want you to pass it.
You got that.
Any other members of the public? No other comment? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. who'd like to go first?
I have a question, and maybe this is a question for Russ or for legal counsel, but what happens to the citizens petition if voters pass that and then we pass something else? Where's the,
Well, just in the
what happens?
in the graduated, if the board passes an ordinance and then the citizens petition passes as well, the question would be, what are the differences between the two? I would imagine the citizens petition would probably prevail in the hierarchy.
It's more
Happened after.
I mean, I guess I would then defer to the election. If there's something on the ballot that has the potential of superseding whatever we do here, I would rather just wait to see what happens.
I agree with Molly. That's why I brought up the enforcement part early.
Yeah.
There was a reason for that. Just to point out that we've got language for enforcement and no way really to do it.
So I'm just quickly comparing. I've got the petition here, or the wording of it.
And if the citizens petition doesn't pass, then I think we would, we would have a starting point, and we have what we asked Kristen to do. We have the proposal from the Sustainability Committee. I mean, my concerns here are, first, we're not being big enough, and I understand that we can't pass laws that impact people who are selling this stuff in our towns, like the Hannafords and the Market Baskets, and there are the bigger problems. And so when we're sort of targeting this little subset of who we can target, I don't think we shouldn't do that. But we're hurting our food trucks, or potentially hurting our food trucks, when we're not hurting the people who are contributing to the problem. And so that, that's something that I'm weighing. And I don't know that I think that we should absolutely do something, and we should, in my view, I would feel more comfortable seeing what happens to the citizens petition, because if the citizens petition passes, then we know what our voters want.
So Nick, are you still comparing? Because I can jot off my...
No, I was comparing. I mean, the wording is similar.
If I may, the wording of the citizens petition and what we presented tonight should be identical.
Well,
now, it might be different than the proposal for a policy. There's changes in the policy language,
yeah,
but not in the two ordinance proposals.
Right.
So I've got your ordinance that was in the packet.
Yes.
And I've got the petition here. And it's not identical, particularly in the oversight. The ordinance in the packet is more specific regarding oversight than the petition. The petition does not really spell out in detail the offenses and so forth and so on.
Interesting.
I've got it right here. I'm not making it up. It's right here.
Cut paste. So now there is an.
Why don't you go to the microphone?
Yeah, both had an overview page, what it would do and what it wouldn't do, which was a summary, but they both have attached the specific language, which was quite literally a cut paste. So if there is a different language, it might be something got clipped, but it should be honestly the same language.
So this is the petition that's on the warrant, okay? If reasonable replacements have been identified but infractions continue, the town considers this a violation of this ordinance and written warning will be issued. Town departments will meet with the town manager and conservation and sustainability planner to seek alternate solutions to achieve compliance with this ordinance. That's in the citizens petition. I read verbatim.
Yeah.
In the ordinance that's in our packet under oversight, if reasonable replacements have been identified but infractions continue, the town considers this a violation of this ordinance and written warning will be issued. Town departments will meet with the town manager and conservation and sustainability planner to seek alternative solutions to achieve compliance with this ordinance. Upon a second or subsequent infraction of this ordinance, the town interprets this as a direct violation of the vendor permit and cause for refusal to approve use permit. And that's...
Yeah, it sounds like you've lost the last paragraph
well,
from
our packet.
Yeah, I understand.
So that's what was submitted for the ordinance.
Yes, and like, as I was trying to say, for the petition, which is in your other hand, I believe, it sounds like the last paragraph either didn't make the page or didn't make it to you, but they're literally the same document. Anyway, that's the intention, so.
And my intention, by the way, is just for, I'm not being argumentative, sir, I'm trying to clarify this.
Yeah.
Because it's not the same.
I agree.
In the packet. So, this is the petition that's going to go on the town warrant that I read to you, the first one, where it doesn't talk about second offenses or lack of permitting for a third offense. And then the ordinance that's in our packet for this evening that you want us to consider for passing spells out specifically the oversight and the warnings and the possible violations. So I'm just trying to...
You're reporting the news, I understand, yes. So somewhere between the clerk's office and your desk, something's happened to the last paragraph of that. That's all I have to say.
Is there something missing in the citizens petition?
Yes. As you read it from the packet for tonight, that is what was submitted at the clerk's office. So what I'm not sure, literally from the computer, cut and paste the exact same document. So.
And I'm sure you did.
Yeah. So the intention is the packet piece.
Does it have it? Do we have it on our website? I'm just trying to find it.
No, but I know we have it in our email, so I'm going as quick as I can to find it.
What are you looking for?
What we got for an email for the citizens petition. It seems like there's language missing?
I mean, I don't know that I ever got that. I mean, I got the petition when I saw the warrant that we read on January 17th.
Right. And I have that packet too, sorry. I'm jumping ahead. I brought this stuff. Oh, December.
So be that as it may, I'm only clarifying because Selectwoman Cowan made an observation of maybe letting the voters decide in March.
Absolutely.
Where there's a citizens petition, and I just want to make sure that what the voters are going to be looking at and what you're proposing aren't the same. No fault of yours, but it's not the same.
Yeah, we'll have to explore with the town manager's office and the select board how typological problems are rectified. So before it gets to deliberative session, for sure.
So the citizens petitions go through the town clerk, Mr. Dean.
Right.
I mean, how
town clerk and then to the warrant from there.
We got the warrant the same time the public did in our packet. So we don't get the warrant before it goes in our packet. So it's not a...
Understood.
So that's what I'm trying to find out.
Right. So we'll investigate further, see what we can find out.
Yep.
All right. So now that we've established that.
I would still feel comfortable waiting to see what happens with the election.
I'm with Molly on that one.
Yeah.
Getting away from the discrepancy in the language, some of the slide that you showed on the $7 million in the water.
Yes.
Can you walk me through where you got those figures so I can understand?
Yes, I reached out to Bob Kelly of the Budget Recommendation Committee and asked for an overview of if he knew what we invested as a capital expense for improvements on water quality over the last 10 years or so. I also reached out to the Public Works Department, and we were only able to identify about the same amount of money. So it's an approximate approximation. It's exclusive of our annual water bill and usage. So, and it should be transparent in the most recent budget.
So that doesn't take into account the
Grants or anything?
grants, or just the whole wastewater plant?
Right.
No, it wasn't wastewater. It was just drinking water.
Just drinking water. Okay. Thank you. Can you pull up just the,
Sure. Run that backwards.
one back, I think it was, I'm sorry. And then forward. One more. No. And that's from the DPW.
That's from DPW, and again, the $1.2 million is a conservative estimate from Jen Perry just before she left on the annual proposed figure for 2023, which was actually expected to go up, and the percentage was 48% of that total amount, which put us at approximately $0.5 million.
Okay. I just want to make sure I've got the sources correct. Okay. So you are comfortable with it going to the citizens petition to the ballot, as are you, Selectwoman Belanger, Selectwoman Gilman?
Yeah, I think I am too. Because of the struggle that we have with this, and fine points, fine lines that we're talking about, I think that going to the voters who I know how they're going to vote, but going to the voters brings this conversation wider, and will tell us, if our worries are worries or not, I guess, and also having it go into place. I was going to recommend that we start this out as a policy, see how it works, and then make an ordinance, and give it that amount of time. But since the citizens petition is already there, then I would say let's go for that.
I think so.
Selectwoman Roundtree-Olaf, any thoughts?
Nope.
No, okay.
Can we also comment, or we just?
Yeah, go ahead.
There are just a few things that I think it's important to reiterate for myself. One, I know all of us have voiced support for this.
Yes.
For me, it's not letting go of bottled water. I don't use bottled water myself. So I want to be careful that our public understands that this select board supports this. It's making sure that we take care of the other responsibilities that are important. We have to do that. We have to make sure Parks and Rec, it's not $2,500 for a deficit. It's $20,000 on the pool deficit. $5,000 of just those two items make up $5,000 toward that deficit, okay? So, and we, I think, have had several discussions about this. We need to know what the cost is gonna be, so when it comes to our next budget cycle, we find a way to make sure we make Parks and Rec whole.
Agreed.
And so I just want to, I don't know, there were just a few comments made that I found troubling for me personally, that we're committed to the community. I grew up here. I want to see us thrive and be healthy and prosper and do things. Helpsy was one of those items that we talked about tonight. So just because we're kind of struggling over the fine points, that doesn't mean we're not supportive. So I do want the public,
Understood.
I think it's very important for the public to understand that we're not against this, and we're just trying to find ways that we need to find as a select board to make it work.
Understood.
So, and I'm going to leave it there. Thank you.
So if the board will indulge me, and I'll be very brief, but I want to say, starting with Kristen Murphy, and also, Chris, to you and the Sustainability Advisory Committee, for whom I've been the select board rep since the implementation. I know the amount of hard work that you all put into this, and it was good work. And this board has been supportive of this initiative. Much like other initiatives in the past for the Sustainability Advisory Committee, our form of local government, SB2, is a good form of government that seems to work pretty well for the town of Exeter, but it can be slow sometimes, and it can delay things. So one or two things happen. We go through what we need to go through for the board to make, an educated vote on what they think is best for the citizens, or if it moves too slowly for some, a citizen's petition can be put forth, or a warrant article. And then the voters speak, and it's the voice of the voters, and it's the will of the voters. And I'm confident that, as Selectwoman Gilman said, that this will pass. I would have preferred, starting with a policy, to work into an ordinance. That's what we discussed at the last public hearing. That would have allowed us to do something now, and then iron out what we needed to iron out of the wrinkles, whether it be the Parks and Rec budget, oversight. I don't like the word enforcement. Thank you for that. But there's a citizen's petition there. So I agree with my colleagues. We'll wait and hear from the voice of the voters. Let the voters speak. That being said, whether it's the ordinance that got cut off or didn't get cut off, there are still some unknowns within it. The word reasonable is going to have to be a little bit more tightly defined. Working with Parks and Rec for alternatives, working with vendors for alternatives. I'm hoping that we can work collaboratively to educate, because that's the big thing here. You said it. It's first educating and then encouraging people to change their habits.
Absolutely.
And that's it. So I listened to your presentation tonight. I've known you for a long time, and I feel compelled to tell you and the committee that we are supportive of this initiative. We've always been supportive of this initiative. We were just trying to do it in the right way for the town as we thought. So, this was not argumentative. This was clarifying some issues. I'm appreciative of all the work that I know you did a lot of work, Chris, on your own. The committee did a lot of work. And that's why we have this advisory committee. And we see our first presentation this evening with Helpsy. We know there are other initiatives that you've been working on, and we're looking forward to working with you in the future. So,
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more thing to say.
Sure.
On Wednesday at the State House, the Municipal and County Government Committee that I sit on is having a hearing on House Bill 226, which gives towns the authority, or the authority, I guess, to regulate the point of sale, distribution of single-use packaging, and the disposal of single-use packaging waste within their municipal landfills and transfer stations. And I will tell you that this almost exact language has come before my committee at least 4 years in a row and has failed every time. But this year is a little different in the makeup of the legislature, so. Go electronically sign in, leave some text.
Selectwoman Gilman, I'll go one further. Chris, I know you were the spokesman. The committee worked collaboratively, but you've been the spokesperson on this rather effectively. And, with or without an ordinance, as you know, we talked about this at the committee meetings probably a year ago, the select board only has the authority to do town property or all that. So as effective as your presentations have been, I would encourage you on behalf of the town of Exeter and the state of New Hampshire to work with Selectwoman Gilman. Let's get you up to Concord. Sure. And let's get the state to do what they're authorized to do.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, because I'll tell you that in those 4 years, we haven't had a lot of people come to those hearings, surprisingly. And this was before, most of it was before we had the remote sign-in, electronic sign-ins that you can do to register your opinion.
That's where I was going to go, because you can do it remotely.
Yeah.
You don't have to drive to Concord. Just throwing that out.
I know, just like
But
we like seeing you here,
go to Concord.
goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's an alternate B for you.
And it's you can put your opinion in on 10 bills in 10 minutes. Just, if you know what you're looking, if you look at the calendar, and I'm going to go through some of that later, but yeah, I'd encourage you to, and the whole committee and all your friends to go in and sign on that.
That's great. Thank you.
I was going to do that later, but this is the right time.
Time management, Selectwoman. Time
Indeed.
Mr. Dean, are you going to introduce, or is the Assistant Town Manager Roy going to introduce the next?
Yeah, I'll speak to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
So the next item, agenda item you have in front of you is the town is a recipient of an NHDES ARPA Cybersecurity Implementation Grant. We have had a cybersecurity action plan done for the town for the water sewer areas, and this grant is for $100,000, and it will be to implement, install hardware, upgrade software, make configuration changes, and implement and improve cybersecurity process strategy and approach, and just wanted to recognize Steve Dalton's efforts in securing this grant. It's $100,000, and it's from the state NHDES, and we're glad to have it.
Terrific. We're always happy to be recipient grants.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Dean?
Thank you.
I'll give everyone a second.
I don't have any, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were looking at me.
Then if there are no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to accept the state ARPA grant from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services in the amount of $100,000 to the town of Exeter, to authorize the town manager to sign the associated paperwork with such agreement on behalf of the town.
So moved.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. Thank you. And Mr. Dean, the next.
Yes, the second grant in the packet is an NHDES grant for lead service line sampling plan and replacement plan. As you know, that this has actually been part of our budget, and we've been seeking alternate funding to help us supplement the local budget. So this is a grant for $50,000.
And this also from Mr. Dalton?
I'm sorry?
Mr. Dalton also pursued this grant?
Correct. Mr. Dalton did a great job.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Dalton. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to accept the lead service line sampling plan and replacement plan grant from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services in the amount of $50,000 to the town of Exeter, and to authorize the town manager to sign the associated paperwork with such agreement on behalf of the town.
So moved.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And Chief Wilking.
In keeping with brevity, the same goes here. I'm pleased to present to you a $10,000 grant, 999975, for the purpose of updating the town's hazard mitigation plan. That's a required plan for FEMA for us to be eligible for future grants and reimbursements for storms. It's due every 5 years. Rockingham County Planning has updated the previous 3 plans since I've been in this position, and they have offered to do so again. This grant goes through the New Hampshire Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. It's an in-kind 75-25 grant, which we would have to commit $3,333.25, which we would do through salaries and time of town officials. So in a sense, it costs the town nothing. I would urge the board to accept the grant. And I'm not sure if you've got your motion there already, but reading the grant's guidance for minutes, the first paragraph would have to be added to exactly what you read to the previous 2, if you would like Town Manager Rustin to act as your agent. Either that or 3 of you need to sign every page of that grant, on and on and on. So your choice is empower the town manager to do what you do.
I have one question.
Sure.
I'm just curious. When we're doing an in-kind match by using our staff to do whatever work needs to be done, what hourly rate do they allow you to charge?
My job is to track the hours, and then I work with Corey. It's what the state discusses as fully loaded, so it's salary plus all associated taxes and benefits the town is obligated to pay. So in a course of a fire chief or police chief, it would be our retirement contributions, taxes, and all that. When Russ sits on the board, obviously salary and any of the benefits that he's afforded there's a formula that they give us, and we just plug all the numbers in. It's not hard at all to come up with $3,000. In fact, the local emergency planning grant we did 2 years ago, we had over $6,000 or $7,000 in salary and benefits associated with the development of that plan, and we're able to use those to offset future grants as our match as well, because we didn't use them all for that. So some fine folks up there in Concord keep track of all this for us and allow us to kind of roll the stuff over. So, but that's...
Well, no, the reason I was curious is because I get grants, but they're not, sometimes they're federal, but they go through the state, and the state only lets us use the minimum wage when accounting for our volunteers.
Not aware of that. We've been able to track.
Well, you're not a
actual
volunteer,
wages.
so maybe that's the difference. Yeah, $7.25.
Any other questions?
I don't have any, thank you.
All right, Chief, let me see if I can get this to how we'd like it. I would entertain a motion to accept the Emergency Management Performance Grant from the New Hampshire Homeland Security and Emergency Management in the amount of $9,999.75 for the required 5-year update to the National Hazards Mitigation Plan, and to further authorize the town manager to sign the associated paperwork with such agreement on behalf of the town.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Before we vote, Chief, will that cut it? That motion?
I think so.
Okay.
I'll make sure. I'll work with Joanna. She's got the language.
Okay.
I thank you so much.
We have a second and we have a motion and a second. No discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Chief. The next and last discussion item, Mr. Dean and I, as well as Assistant Manager Melissa Roy, Town Moderator Kate Miller, Andy Swanson, met with folks with regards to the Omni Ballot voting apparatus, which the board will recall a year ago, we voted to authorize funds to purchase this. And Mr. Dean will fill in the blanks as to why this hasn't been purchased yet, but what we'd like to propose to the board moving forward. So, Mr. Dean?
So yeah, the blanks go something like this. Back in January of last year, when this was being considered, there were some issues brought forward about a proposed contract with Democracy Live and Omni Ballot, and there was a lot of back and forth amongst Primex and amongst Naomi Butterfield from the Mitchell Municipal Group. And one of the things that, since we've found out in the meantime, is that this is actually considered by the Secretary of State as an accessibility machine. It's not a ballot counting machine, so the two are treated very differently. The other thing is, if it was a ballot counting machine, there would have had to have been a bond procured and filed with the Secretary of State's office, and that doesn't need to be done. So that at the time really iced the idea of going forward with it. I believe the moderator felt there was too many issues associated with it at that time. He told us about it, and we did not implement it. They came back this year. We've had conversations, as Chair Papakonstantis noted. We had a meeting on January 25th to talk about Democracy Live, Omni Ballot, and we've done a little bit more research in this regard. We've called Concord, the city of Concord. We've talked to their I've talked to their city manager. Also, there's been correspondence between the town moderator and the city clerk in Concord, and the news looks better in terms of being able to get the unit, at least in its initial phase. But one of the things that we found out was when we talked to Democracy Live and Omni Ballot, and I'll just read from Felicia Ehrlich, who's their person in charge, they can no longer order less than 100 units. They've also been upgrading and changing their software. for this year, we can work on getting you a test unit like we were going through last year. It would be an old printer we had, for we are unable to order less than 100 of any new equipment at this time. So we had a Zoom call with Democracy Live, Omni Ballot. We asked them if they could, since they had been working with Exeter in the past, would they consider a single unit for us? They are currently working on that to see if they can provide that for us, and that's really where we're at this time.
So one of the marketing chips that we have here is, other than the city of Concord, there are no other towns that are presently using this machine as
For town meeting.
For town meeting, correct. Yes, for town meeting only, because of the way that the ballots are. The city of Concord is the only municipality, in my understanding, in New Hampshire that's using it. So the town of Exeter would actually be on the forefront of this if we were able to move this. So one of the things that we brought up at the meeting was, when we're negotiating with Democracy Live,
Democracy Live
is, you know, maybe by selling us that one machine and you know, through word of mouth advertising that, hey, look, the town of Exeter is using this machine, it would spread throughout the state. I would think, as business people, that would be a good marketing opportunity. So if we haven't already, Mr. Dean, maybe we should bring that up.
Right, and we have talked to them about that point. Just some notes on Concord while we're talking about the different places that have this. The city of Concord reports that they have had no problems with the Democracy Live system for accessible ballot marking for voters with vision impairments since 2021, when they began using the units. And the city has no contract. They bought 10 tablets from Democracy Live, and they pay them a fee for each year for the tablets to be programmed via USB with the contents of the ballot for the city elections. The city did not have to get approval from the BLC because, as I learned when I talked to the Secretary of State's office directly, the commission has no jurisdiction over ballot marking systems. So I think that's accessible systems. And the city did not get formal approval from the Secretary of State to use the system, in part because the city of Concord was working with the Secretary of State to address litigation that the city was in. So they were in that particular issue. So we are continuing to work with Democracy Live, Omni Ballot, hopefully to bear fruit. We have another call set up with them for later this week, and we're going to continue to pursue this.
Okay. I'll just say it's unfortunate that there was a misunderstanding between the town's insurance and council as to what the machine actually did, and I think that's what held it up initially, and then just the delay and follow-up. I know the board felt strongly about purchasing this machine last year. Obviously, we all want easy access for everybody to be able to vote. And I think this is still a priority for the board. In fact, I know it is. Mr. Dean, what's the likelihood that we could have this machine for the March election, March 2023? I'm not putting you on the spot, but just if you could.
Yeah, I would say it would be hard for me to say right now.
Fair.
Just because we're in the midst of conversations as we speak.
Fair enough. Then could the board get an update February 13th?
Yes.
Okay.
I should have an update for you Saturday at deliberative session.
Even better.
Because voting is 6 weeks from tomorrow, would anyone have to have time to do test runs? I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's a good question.
As like an FYI type of, if we have 6 weeks from tomorrow, and if we need it, say, a week ahead of time, that brings us down to 5 weeks. Just so we have some kind of a timeline in our minds.
So the machine, and it's a very good question, the machine is one we've used for the other elections. This is just for this. So the real testing would be whether it takes the town ballot, the school ballot, and whether it can be input.
Right. So, but we'd still want to test, right?
Yep.
Just because, quite a difference in the ballots.
Yeah.
And when the unit tested last year, they did prove out to us that they could handle a town ballot That was one of the things that Democracy Live did for us when they did their demo.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. I would just feel more comfortable having it in time to do a test before the actual voting day, just to be sure.
Well, the regular machines are tested anyway, but that's based on the ballot to make sure that it reads the ballots correctly.
Right.
Not just how do you use it, testing.
Right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dean.
I did enjoy
You're
using
welcome.
the one at the general election in November. It was fast.
Okay, jumping into regular business, Madam Clerk, I'll turn it over to you. We have several credits, exemptions, and abatements.
Okay.
Oops.
Mr. Chair, hey, you ran over it. I move to approve an abatement for MAP 110, Lot 2, Unit 33, in the amount of $133.83 for the tax year 2022.
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
I move to approve a solar exemption for MAP 11, Lot 18, Unit 22, in the amount of $15,500 for the tax year 2023.
Second?
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
I move to approve a solar exemption for MAP 81, Lot 30, in the amount of $13,000 for the tax year 2023.
Second?
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
And the next three items are veterans credits, which all amount to $500. Would you like to do them in one motion?
Please.
So I move to approve veterans credit for MAP 81, Lot 30, MAP 72, Lot 83, MAP 81, Lot 19, all for $500 each for the tax year 2023.
Second?
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
I move to approve a disability exemption for MAP 95, Lot 64, Unit 96, in the amount of $125,000 for the tax year 2023.
Second?
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
I move to approve an elderly exemption for MAP 72, Lot 17, Unit 6, in the amount of $183,751 for tax year 2023.
Second?
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
I move to approve an elderly exemption for MAP 64, Lot 105, Unit 45, in the amount of $152,251 for the tax year 2023.
Second?
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I move to approve an elderly exemption for MAP 104, Lot 79, Unit 604, in the amount of $236,251 and for the tax year 2023.
Second?
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
And I move to approve an elderly exemption for MAP 103, Lot 13, Unit 17, the amount of $152,251 for the tax year 2023.
Second?
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. Thank you,
Aye.
Madam Clerk. And next we have Deputy Fire Chief Fritz here to follow up on a couple of questions we had on a new street name.
Yes, correct.
Deputy
Thank
Chief
you for
Fritz.
having me.
Thank you for coming.
Just wanted to clarify a few items that were in my proposal from your last meeting that I apologize if they weren't clear. Looking for a motion to accept a private way as part of PEA's new project over off of Gilman Lane.
And PEA maintains the road, correct? We saw that through the correspondence.
By definition,
Okay.
it's on private property. It's built and maintained by the property owner.
Okay.
There was some questions forwarded to me regarding access. We did contact PEA and got a response from them saying that as access is allowed now to the public up into there's a gate that will be there as far as vehicle traffic goes, and as far as pedestrian traffic goes, there'll be no change.
Okay. And all that information's in our packet, so thank you.
Yeah, my question, maintenance part was, I'm sorry, I know that's not your purview, but it did come to mind, so thank you.
You're welcome. So if there are no other questions, I would accept a motion to accept Stuckey Place as a new private way located off of Gilman Lane.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 4-0 and 1 abstention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Mr. Dean, next we have a request for tax abatement, I believe.
Yes, this is, again, situation where a writ of possession has been procured on a mobile home and the town can't collect the taxes.
And my understanding, this is just for 1 year, if I read this correctly?
This is for
2 years.
2 years.
2021, 2022?
For 2 years, yes.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? I'm just looking for one note, I'm sorry. And this is for the principal in the interest, Mr. Dean?
Yes, it is.
Any questions or comments? No. No? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion, to abate the real estate tax principal and interest due for map 104, lot 80, unit 1, for the tax years 2021 and 2022, for a total of $4,413.74.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Dean, Town Manager's report, could you please start with an update on the Swayze Parkway application before the probate court as per the March 2022 warrant article passing?
Yes, so I received an email from Town Council today at 12:52 p.m., and it was to confirm a conversation that we had had on Friday, and it reads, "We have received the signed acceptance of service form back from the Director of Charitable Trusts, and we have filed it with the probate court in lieu of having service completed by the Sheriff's Department. Charitable Trust still seems open to working with us to agree on the issuance of a final decree. We have discussed some language that the director would like in the draft decree, and we should have our revised proposed decree back to her no later than tomorrow." So that's the latest on that.
And did Attorney Mitchell give any timeline as to when this might be finalized?
He did not, but he was optimistic that it would not be before too long.
Before too long. And is he aware of the citizens petition?
He is.
And did he offer any opinion?
He
specifically, as if the citizens petition passed, how would that work with the previous warrant article?
My understanding is that if this process is completed by the court prior to the vote on March 14th, then what's done is done from the court's perspective, and that action is completed. If it's not done by then the citizens petition article could take effect. That's my understanding from town attorney.
Okay. So I'm thinking about when you pass a bill, then a year later you pass another bill. Like, is that different?
has to be different, yeah.
No, but I mean, is that different than what we're talking about here in terms of?
A little bit, because the first one is to keep the roadway open, right? And so that's reversible, keeping it open or closing it. Whereas the one that's up this year is not so reversible. I mean, they're blocking off half of it, right?
No, it's the other way. It's the one that passed in March is closing it from Water Street to the gazebo and the turnaround.
Yeah.
The citizens petition is to keep it as it is now with one-way traffic.
The other way, okay, sorry, the other way around. Yeah, I would say that keeping it open, it would be whichever is more restrictive. So that's a great opinion, right?
Right, and I would think it's whatever comes last. So, just logistic, I don't know. So could we just get like one, I'm sorry, but we just talked about the single-use plastic and why Molly brought up about waiting until the citizens petition. And one of the questions was, if we passed an ordinance, no matter what we passed, if we happen to do it tonight, whatever happened with the citizens petition would take precedent, would become the effective. So I would think, unless I'm missing something, that the same would hold true for Swayze Parkway. I don't know.
I don't know either, because it could also be that the single-use plastics is not enforceable, and there's issues there. It could be that there are issues with this citizens petition because it's, it is in the process of going through the court, and, is there like, so I don't know either. And I just don't, what I didn't want to have happen today is, all right, so we're going to adopt something today, and then something else is going to pass, and then we're going to be in conflict, and then how do we resolve it? It's better just to know, because once that passes, then there's one thing, and then we can work off of it instead of two things that we're not working.
And I agree with you, and I think that might be the best approach for this other citizens petition, that I know we're getting some understanding from the town attorney, but until we know what the results of March are, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Is that okay?
Well, I also think that we've put in motion, like 63% of the town voted, and like we put this thing in motion, and, I don't feel, I feel a duty to say, we're going to care, like we've put this thing in motion. We've put a lot of money behind it because this is clear, we had all these discussions. So I am not of a mind of like, okay, we're just going to stop anything.
Oh, I'm not suggesting that.
Then sure.
Absolutely not. No, I'm just trying to find the same what we did with the other, is that with the citizens petition, it kind of ties our hands until we know what the outcome of the vote is. And then the board.
So I see where you're coming from, but I think the difference here is that, and you're right, but a warrant article was passed, and we have something pending in litigation, and we have folks either coming to our meetings or asking us. So my request to Mr. Dean is to just have Attorney Mitchell continue to update us.
Oh, absolutely, because we do need to know.
There's a binding warrant article that passed, and there's the pending litigation, and litigation being the wrong word. It's just in the courts, but
it is the right word though. But it's not a
So
it's not a contentious one. How's that?
Well, it's contentious.
No. I mean,
in the court.
What's going on right now? It was part of what passed. This was the step.
Correct.
Yes.
So
sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dean, and back to your town manager's report.
Yep, they're working hard on the siphons project down at Swayze. They did have a hiccup with it's called the gyro device. It's in the head of the drill, which they use to steer the drill, and it stopped working on Friday afternoon, so they had to pull the drill out and order a new gyro device. They expect it to be delivered this afternoon. That's as of this afternoon. So I can give you a further update, and I know Mr. Vlasic is going to be at the meeting on February 13th to give a more complete update on the siphons project. And
are we still on budget with the siphon project?
As far as I know, we are. Yeah, as far as I know. preparations are being made for deliberative session. The explanatory information is being put together. We expect to continue that work into tomorrow. And finish that to be ready for deliberative on Saturday. And other than that, I think that was my report for tonight.
So 9 o'clock?
9 o'clock Saturday at
Exeter High School. Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Dean?
Other than it's going to be cold, people bundle up and start your car early.
Select Board Committee reports. I'll start down here. Selectwoman Roundtree, did you have any?
No.
Okay. Selectwoman Cowan.
Same.
Selectwoman Gilman.
Yes, I had a Heritage Commission meeting where basically it was swapping information. We have paid dues to belong to the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. And so we finally got that through, and everybody on HDC and Heritage Commission has access to it. A lot of good learning tools in there. And the same is the state's Division of Historical Resources is having to Zoom presentations about certified local governments and what we can do. So I'm excited to have other people than me understand what it is. And that was all that is. The other thing that's before me right now is the calendar of House bills that are being heard or voted on this week. And it's 4 pages, and I don't want to go through every single one, but I would ask Mr. Dean if Pam McElroy can print this as an additional packet. I can send it to all of you so you can tell your friends, but would that be all right? There's a lot of, I'll just really highlight, a lot of energy bills, renewable energy bills are coming up for hearings or decisions on Wednesday and Thursday. Nothing before the whole House, but within the committees. A few right-to-know law things being voted on in committee. Another one having to do with the right to know when consulting, when legal consulting is involved. What's my committee doing? The plastics, and ones we're actually voting on Thursday have to do with adopting a rental practice. A town can adopt a rental practice. I think that one's going down in flames. And the other is to require all select board and school board meetings to be recorded. And we do it very well here because we do almost everything. But the problem with this bill is that not every town is like Exeter or a city. And I know how much personnel and equipment it takes for us to use this. So that became a little town versus big town discussion at the committee. So that's going to the full House on Thursday. The thing that happens with these calendars is they come out on Friday afternoon after the packet's been put together. So like every other week, I can get it in for a select board meeting, but then by then things will be passed, already done with. So I'm just trying to find out, I'll take suggestions for a way to get this information out.
Why not a supplemental packet item, like if you send it Friday night whenever you get it, and Mr. Dean's office can put it as a supplemental packet.
Okay.
It's not changing the agenda, it's just adding correspondence, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that prudent, Mr. Dean?
Yes, that's okay with us.
Okay, good.
We can do that.
I just skimmed it down from 20 pages to 4.
Thank you.
Anyway, that's all I have.
Okay.
You'll be happy to know I only had one meeting.
I believe it.
Yes, I know.
All or nothing.
And it is. One week a month, I have 4 or 5 in 1 week. So the planning board meeting, Thursday, January 26th, unanimous recommendation for Article 2, and that's to amend Article 9.44 of the Flood Plan of Development Ordinance by adding language to the ordinance to strengthen the town's resilience, to increase flooding events, and to reduce impacts associated with rising sea levels. There was discussion on the replacement of the zoning ordinances, and that's going to be worked on throughout next year. Planning board, again, was all in favor of this. Mr. Sharples gave us a list of how we're going to address it at every meeting or every possible meeting. So there's several categories, and if by October, all the categories aren't where we would like them to be, then we might have work sessions or to address them. So people watch the planning board meetings and look at the agenda. Melissa's laughing at me.
Make me a copy.
I can. And then the other thing that was stressed was they really would like to see education continue on the zoning conversation. And then because we had no applicants, we had time for discussion. And one of the things that was stressed was for workforce housing. There has been plenty of discussion at the workforce housing, at the Housing Advisory Committee level to talk about how if we're going to support workforce housing, we have to have some form of oversight. We have to make sure that there's a recording someplace yearly, and that two of the planning board members were stressed that that's a concern of theirs. So I just know a lot of organizations are working on that, including planning.
Yeah, I could send you an article from Governing Magazine if you don't already get that I just read today, and it's really about rent control, but there's 4 or 5 articles, but they all talk about what aspects of rent control worked or didn't work, and it's like nobody knows if it worked or didn't work because it's been in and out and in and out. But some of the things that it talks about are how to maintain.
Right. So if it's an owner condo, then it's in the documents, the ownership documents. But if it's a rental, there has to be a reporting mechanism. And it is important, we've recognized at the Housing Advisory Committee level, so just an FYI.
There was also a bill to create a registry of rents at the county level.
I think it would be good data, but I don't know who will support that.
Well, that's the implementing it, and it would cost money, and there was no financial note. I think it would be a good idea too, but also an invasion of privacy and...
Well, no, because... Actually, sorry, Nico, but I'm just going to say one more thing on this. So if you have any kind of subsidized housing, you have to report the stuff. So it's already out there to do it, but different organizations take that information. So maybe, just maybe, at the State House, somebody could bring up that if we need workforce housing oversight, then maybe that data for the rental income, because right now the only data we have is people filling out the surveys. Right, and if we don't know all the amounts and the issues for the problem, it's really hard to find a solution for a problem when we don't have all the facts.
Yeah, but this is for a bill for an ongoing thing, so...
I got it.
John Doe landlord would have to put in what his units are being rented for.
Sorry.
No, thank you.
That's okay.
I could go on forever on that.
I hijacked you. Okay.
Okay, I sat in the Swayze Park trustee meeting, and it was a very brief meeting. They talked a little bit about the flooding, and also talked about doing some work on the pruning of certain trees that they've identified while the parkway is closed. And that was about it there. Reviewing the correspondence, the only piece of correspondence we had were Attorney Mitchell's memo that we talked about during the single-use plastic. Looking at the board calendar, as Mr. Dean alluded, we have the deliberative session this Saturday, February 4th, 9 o'clock at the high school. And we have our all boards meeting February 8th from 6 to 9 at the library. And then this board will meet 3 more times before the election in March. We'll meet on February 13th, February 27th, and March 6th, understanding that you, Selectwoman Cowan, have a conflict.
I do.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I meant to add one more thing, and Julie sidetracked me. It's your fault.
Sorry.
We received on Friday afternoon a really interesting email from Darren Wynnum, our Economic Development Director. I'm going to suggest or ask that if he could get this done a little earlier, maybe we could get this in the packet. So if there's any questions or we want to bring anything out to the public, we have it, and they have reference to it. But it's Town of Exeter, New Hampshire business outreach. So I think, there's some sponsor offers and things like that. So I just would think it would be good to add to our package.
Mr. Dean, any objection to that?
None.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Mr. Wynnum, thank you. Selectwoman Belanger.
Thank you.
Any other business? Seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second and motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.